You've heard of shale oil, right? You've heard that it has turned America into the number one producer of oil, right? Great, right? Sorry, wrong. Everyone, please get this into your head. Shale oil companies cannot make money, and they don't. I know that I've been pounding this drum for a long time, but this drum needs to be pounded because we are talking about the death of what we see as our civilization, and no one is paying attention. This shale oil miracle was created only, and I mean ONLY only, by the cheap credit that came out of the financial crisis in 2008. Peak oil is the death of America. Full stop. America cannot survive if the cost of transportation rises to the sky. Europe will be better able to survive this collapse, but it will also die. And China? There's no way that China can make it in the way that she is structured now. She will crash and burn, and what rises from the ashes will be hard to say. Please, please be ready for this to happen. America will be destroyed by peak oil, and you need to be ready for what happens. And you will see the evidence of peak oil with your own eyes when the bond markets crash and the shale oil companies can no longer stay in business. And we heard evidence of all that in an interview on YouTube called Bethany McLean, Saudi America. But Peak Prosperity, and it's a YouTube video, by the way, but Peak Prosperity also did a write-up for the interview on their website, and that write-up is so good that I want to read that write-up to you. It's on the Peak Prosperity website, and it's titled, just like the interview, Bethany McLean, Saudi America. So let me begin, tripping all over myself. Quote, for years now, we've been covering the false promise of American shale oil miracle. Yes, it has extracted a lot more oil out of American soil than most thought possible, but at an economic loss and at great environmental cost. If the shale drilling companies can't make any profit, either when oil prices are high or low, why are we still pursuing shale deposits so aggressively? To shed further light on this paradox, this week we welcome journalist Bethany McLean to the program. McLean is editor-at-large at Fortune magazine and a contributing editor for Vanity Fair and Slate magazines. She is also author of the excellent book, Saudi America, The Truth About Fracking and How It's Changing the World. McLean warns that the hype, the hucksterism, and the geological shortcomings of the deposits themselves are setting up both investors and American society for tremendous disappointment. The real catalyst of the real catalyst of the shale revolution was the great financial crisis and the era of unprecedentedly low interest rates that followed. And that had two effects. One was that it made debt cheap. So these companies that are heavily dependent on being able to raise capital could raise debt at low prices. And without that, I'm not sure there would have been a shale revolution because they needed such immense amount of capital to fund their drilling. But it had a second impact, which is that when pension funds were no longer able to earn a return in traditional fixed income markets, they've increasingly put their money into riskier assets like hedge funds that invest in credit and private equity firms. Those entities, in turn, have increasingly invested in shale. I got an estimate from one source that said 1/3 of the drilling, 1/3 of the fracking being done in the country today is being done by private equity-backed companies. So we've had this derivative effect of the era of low interest rates. Now there's a lot of money that believes the story that technological improvements are going to make this industry profitable in the long run. But there are lots of ways that private equity firms and other investors can make money, even if the companies themselves don't. And what I mean by that is that for a long time, a shale company that was publicly traded was valued not on its profits, but rather on a multiple of its production or its reserves. And so there's an incentive to take these companies public where it can trade on its growth and production. It doesn't have to produce profits. You can flip your company to the public markets or sell it to an already public company. So it's kind of a big game of musical chairs in many ways. And I think there's an unacknowledged problem with the shale revolution that feeds into the lack of profits. And that's that all wells are not created alike. And so that gets to the really core question here. How much really good acreage is there? And it's a reason to believe that even though the industry did get closer to profitable in this last year, that may not last because a lot of companies were drilling the sweet spots first. They were drilling their best acreage. And the question is, how much of that is there? And to be frank, nobody really knows the answer. Some of that is depending on technological changes. If you can get better technology that enables you to get more oil out of the ground more cheaply, then something that wasn't the sweet spot could become a sweet spot. Thus far, though, the evidence seems to be mounting that the picture is the opposite of that. And by the way, we've had fracking technology since the 1950s. That's me, by the way. And what I mean by that is the Wall Street Journal did a really good piece in late December, pointing out that actually production levels are coming in way short of what companies had estimated. So it looks like the sweet spots overall aren't even as sweet as they were forecast to be. It's not coming in better than expected. It's coming in with shorter projections. There's a lot of this idea. The idea has shifted from America being energy poor to America being resource abundant. And you hear this idea of American energy independence, and even President Trump talks about American energy dominance. And I think I read that the IEA, the International Energy Agency, is forecasting that most of the growth in global production in coming years is going to come from U.S. shale. And as a result of that belief, a lot of the big, long-lived projects that take years of investment before they start to produce have been put on hold. So that oil isn't going to be coming online. I should say, so that oil isn't going to be coming online. And so what happens if shale can't deliver? Okay, that's the article. And I'm really glad that I should say close quote, okay, that's the article. And I'm really glad that I can finally get to peak prosperity articles after pestering them for so long. Thanks, Adam. But there's that last question, this one. And so, what happens if shale can't deliver? Does anyone see that shale is actually delivering on the promise that they've made of energy independence forever? Of course not. Otherwise, Wall Street wouldn't be fleeing shale oil. So since the promise won't be delivered, what will be the outcome? Well, read about the last days in the Bible. It's all there, all of it. Civilization will consume itself in an orgy of violence, and billions will die. All because we were too stupid to see the obvious that was right in front of our eyes.